Welcome, Jelena. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Baiba. Lovely, lovely to be on your podcast.
Yeah, so I found you on LinkedIn and liked what you were sharing and posting about. So I'd love for you to tell us a little more about what it is that you are focused on and most excited right now about.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I do use LinkedIn a lot. It is my platform of choice. And as a career and leadership coach, I normally post a lot around career development, career management, career transitions. I'm very passionate about work, even though people may laugh when I say that and they say, "Are you crazy? What do you mean? Who wants to work?" But for me, it's more like, really understanding the meaning of your work and what do you do with your life? How do you self actualize? How do you use the hours, days, months, and years that you have in front of you to create something meaningful, at least for yourself and maybe for other people. So that is sort of the background of my thinking and what inspires me. But I'm also passionate about transformation, generally facilitating change in people. Of course, they need to want it, but mostly in the context of their professional life, even though personal and professional is always very much connected. So, what am I excited about right now? 2026 is obviously a new year. I have to be honest, 24 and particularly 25 were not that easy when it comes to the world of work and careers. The landscape has changed dramatically in the last few years. I'm sure you see it a lot yourself. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are coming to me who have experienced redundancy. Sometimes it was planned, sometimes it came completely unexpected, and a lot of people's lives are in turbulence as a result of that. And the bigger picture, sort of what's happening in the background, is that, as I'm sure you know, lots of companies, big corporates, have been delayering and reducing headcount, reinvesting that into AI and perhaps their own technology development. So that has resulted in a labor market, a job market, which is really unlike any other that I have seen. And I know this is not very optimistic to open our conversation, but it's a fact. And the figures say, for example, I just shared this on a webinar yesterday, that in the US, 1.2 million jobs have been wiped off in a year, in 2025. In the UK, the figure is over 220,000. So we have a situation where we have a lot of highly qualified, specialized, capable, experienced people who are now struggling to identify their next step and find a fitting role, so that they can continue to create value and support themselves and their families. So that's what's been preoccupying me. Whether I'm excited about it, I am, in the sense that I still see a lot of opportunity to help people in those situations and similar situations.
Yeah, everything that you mentioned is very valid, and there are a lot of people who are struggling as a result. And let's say, especially the numbers, they are drastic. And let's say somebody who's listening is in that place. I know you share now and are posting about the career plan for 2026.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would be your advice? What is that strategy if somebody is
Mm-hmm.
finding themselves in that spot?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it is difficult to not to react from fear, especially if you are in dire straits, if you're already in a situation where you may be struggling or out of work. But in my experience, having coached hundreds of clients, it does pay off to still pay attention to what is that best fit for you, and not to go just for anything, or even if you are working but you're not happy, in order to escape, you kind of go for the first thing. So I would suggest that as much as possible, be strategic about your next step. Even if that means if you have to do some kind of side work or part-time work to support yourself, or some freelancing gig, that's all good. But hold on to your value, and also keep working on your mindset, so that you're coming not from the place of fear and contraction as much as possible, but remind yourself of the value that you know you have. You can create the impact you have created in the past, wherever you worked. So this requires a bit of digging and preparation in terms of creating your stories and how you position yourself. And then I would also say be very creative about how you source and create opportunities for yourself. Because sticking just with online applications, monitoring websites, and sending your resume, as you know, doesn't work really. Maybe one in 1,000. And at least I can say for my clients, it's mostly other methods, such as networking, expanding your network, talking to new people, but also cultivating your own visibility as much as possible on LinkedIn for sure, but also through other methods, if possible and where possible, as a thought leader or speaking at conferences, so that people start to notice you, and then they approach you, rather than you being in a disempowered position competing against thousands of similar professionals for a role that may or may not exist, or may not be even open by the time you applied.
I love everything that you're sharing, Jelena, and I love how you're talking about the creative strategies, but first and foremost is what you're talking about, holding your own value. And it's kind of the state that I feel is the hardest to hold, the state of being when you're out of work. So it's like the
Yeah.
biggest thing. Tell us more. Talk more about it, because it's kind of like contradictory,
Mm,
because that's exactly when the small mind, the scared mind,
yes.
is like, I need to take anything. I need to take either something that's like at a salary five times that I used to, but five times
Mm,
less than I used to make, or what I used to make like 10 years ago, or I need to take a job that I used to do 10 years ago, because that fear and all that kind of can create this narrative really fast that also affects your state of being and that
yes.
power within.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm a big proponent on working on your mindset and developing your self-awareness, because I've seen time and again fantastic professionals, corporate professionals, entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter what you do, but if you don't have the right mindset, no amount of skills or polishing your resume is going to help. So ultimately, it is what you believe about yourself. That's what I find is really fundamental.
Mm.
I don't have a magic bullet for that, unfortunately, but through a process, coaching process that I apply with my clients, we do quite a lot of work on mindset. Depending on the person and sort of what beliefs they may have, it is crucial, I would say, number one, to identify any limiting beliefs, and then to challenge them. And also through a variety of tools and techniques, I help my clients remember who they are, what they achieved in the past, regain their confidence. That could come through analyzing their past achievements, preparing career narratives, also some external feedback. I have a questionnaire that I ask my clients to send around, which is slightly different from a typical 360 feedback in a corporation where you get reviewed by your boss and your peers. This is different, and it involves a broader spectrum of people who will shine some light on, your superpowers, your super strengths, what makes you you, how do you bring that unique value to the table, as well as perhaps things like where you don't give yourself enough credit,
Mhm.
or what are the things you could let go of. So So there's a mixture of different things, and it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does help for sure for people to remember their own value and to own it, and then to start to articulate it in an appropriate way so that it actually aligns or sounds kind of in congruence with whoever is reading their profile or their resume or listening to them in a networking conversation or in an interview.
As you're talking, first of all, I was thinking it's kind of like almost, I love what you're sharing. It's like you are creating like this cocoon, like of this positive feedback, right? That will
Yes,
make you remember all the great things that you've done and what you bring to the table, your attributes, your character, through
yes,
the people. So it's kind of like you have to create that warmth and that like soft and like supportive
support.
structure,
Absolutely.
yeah, that you can then go and then, of course, then like you said, create the narrative from there. And it made me think of dating. It's the same thing. If you go on a date, it's not even what you say, but if you
Mhm.
have the energy, it is the
Yes,
energy of how you carry yourself. You don't have to say anything. If you're looking to be validated by that other person, it's the same in interviews. It's like,
yes.
yuck. It's like a repelling energy.
Yes, I totally agree. And I often talk to clients about that in terms of how lots of things are not perceptible, but it's about what you emanate. And that can be felt and picked up on between the lines, even in an interview. I'll share actually a tip which I don't know came to me somehow spontaneously, and a few of my clients told me that they liked it and it helped to sort of bring yourself into out of the state of fear and nervousness, but into a more positive and relaxed mindset. I asked one particular client and then a few others later, because it seemed to work, to just watch a funny video. I said, you must have your favorite comedian or a cartoon, or just find a funny video. Obviously, don't do it right at the door of the interview, but maybe on your way to the interview, and just have a good laugh. Because when we laugh, we obviously, the physiology, neurology of our brain, we produce certain happiness hormones such as serotonin, oxytocin, and whatever. I don't want to be very technical there, and I'm not a scientist. And it's simply impossible to feel a lot of stress and anxiety because at the same time, because these are different hormones such as cortisol, adrenaline, and so forth. So just bring yourself in whatever way you can into a more positive, relaxed state of mind, and kind of leverage that state, even hormonal or physiological state, as you go for an important conversation.
I love that. That's a beautiful, practical, and very doable thing because you're just breaking that pattern. For me, it's like,
Yes.
okay, if everything else fails or if I go to that place, dance. Dancing for me works. It's like
Yeah.
you're disconnecting from that circuitry.
Mhm. Yes.
I love
Exactly.
that.
Whatever breaks the negative loop is welcome for
Yeah.
sure.
Laughing. Laughing is the best. Fun. Laugh is the best medicine.
Absolutely.
So, Yelena, tell us what has been your own career strategy and road and journey of getting to what you're doing right now? How did you find it, and how does this work make you feel? Is it fulfilling and feels on purpose for you?
Sure. It definitely is very fulfilling, and it feels on purpose. As I mentioned at the beginning of our interview, for some reason I always had fascination with work, and how we make our lives meaningful. So I was lucky to land my first job in Tokyo, Japan, a long, long time ago. And I had met the directors of that company back in Yugoslavia, at the time Serbia, where I'm originally from, because I studied Japanese language and English language and literature. Somehow, anyhow, it happened that they offered me a role in their company, which had to do with graduate recruitment at the time. So it was recruitment mostly through events and publications. But what I liked about it was the idea that I was helping young people like myself get a good chance and a good shot at a good opportunity with companies in Europe, US, and Asia. So it was quite a global role, and I loved it. And after 4 years in Tokyo, I asked them to transfer me to London, and then I ran their European operations there for 6 years. And then after that, I worked in a number of smaller organizations, always to do with careers. I was never a headhunter as such, but I worked with companies helping them source talent, mostly through bespoke campaigns and events. And then in my last stint of employment, I worked with business schools. So again, it was almost like recruitment, but for business schools. So I helped them identify and select prospective students for MBA and executive MBA courses. Again, that was super interesting. I loved it. Traveled around the world again because these were all global events. And also, this stint of working in business education gave me a nice overview of how this can impact your career and how it can help, particularly in the development of a corporate career. And then for the last almost 9 years, I've been running my own career coaching consultancy. So I brought together all of that, the international recruitment aspect, the mobility and sort of global talent aspect, the business education, but I'd say more than anything else, my passion for helping people, as I say, identify, reach, and retain careers they love, because we spend so much time working, right, in our working lives, apparently 90,000 hours, some stats say, over an average lifetime. So it's very important how we spend that time. So that has been my mission, to really help facilitate these journeys that we call careers. Actually, if you look at a number of like over 30 years, I think, obviously we don't work every day of the year, but it seems kind of right, that number. So yes, I've been offering career coaching, which centers around career transition and career progression and some leadership development, for the last 8 years, 9 years almost. And I work with individuals. Occasionally, I have some engagements with corporates, but it's mostly individuals who decide to invest in their own development and decide to work with me.
And how did you come up with the idea for yourself? Being in corporate, working for companies,
Mhm.
how did you reinvent your own journey?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So I think I always wanted to do something by myself. I don't know if I was like super entrepreneurial, but I am curious and I'm quite independent in the sense that I don't think I'm a typical large corporate employee, because I like to do things my own way, and I'm not a rules and compliance person, let's say that way. So it was always interesting for me to have this independence and freedom, and try to create something from scratch. At the time, I was also going through period of personal change in my personal life. I had quit that job, the last one, which I mentioned, where I was for 6, 7 years working with business schools and traveling the world, and all of that was very enjoyable. But it just felt like I needed a new start, a new page. And what I didn't mention by is that throughout decades, really, I was immersed in personal development world, and I did lots of transformational programs. I worked with spiritual teachers and gurus and all kinds of things I've done. So I bring some of that also into my coaching. At that time, there was a lady with who I worked, who I called my spiritual teacher, and she actually put me on the spot in a group of 300 people. She got me to stand up and she said, if you need anything to do with career, speak to this woman. And that's really how it started. I mean, I was kind of thinking about it, but I didn't know exactly what and how I was going to do it. And then I started to to coach people. They started to get some results, and then I thought, okay, I really want to do this properly. I trained with Coaches Training Institute. They're based out of US, but obviously they have chapters in Europe and everywhere else. So I qualified as a coach, and then yeah, it all started to come together.
That's beautiful. And what would you say for others, right? Because so essentially what you're saying is that, you knew some things, and then there was also this synchronicity, right, of this person
Yes,
creating this opportunity, right? And kind of
yes.
like was one step after the other, kind of how it outflowed. And right now, there's definitely an opportunity or going to be, or already is a window where the people who are laid off
Mm,
will have to reinvent.
yeah, yes.
Because like you said, the world of corporate work is changing so much reshuffle. Some of the things will go away.
Yeah.
And the biggest question is, what is that thing? And the biggest fear comes from not knowing how it will play
Mm,
out or knowing the whole plan. So, what would
mm,
be your guidance to somebody right now who's in that situation, but they don't know what is that next thing?
mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I guess the answer would depend on the person, and I probably wouldn't be able to give it to them straight away. I normally help clients through the coaching process uncover that, but I generally invite everyone to be open and curious and also adaptable. Apparently, almost half of the planet, or people who are working in any kind of work, are already having portfolio careers, meaning they're doing this, that, and the other, rather than just working for one company, from the beginning to when they retire. That hardly exists anywhere anymore, even including Japan, which used to be very well known for lifetime employment. Like there's no hardly anywhere any lifetime employment. So people are opting, and I've certainly helped a number of clients go that way as well, especially if they have experience of a couple of decades and expertise, which is to build a portfolio career, meaning a little bit of consulting, possibly having some non-executive directorships where they can advise. It could be fractional roles where they take a position of a CFO, for example, working 3 days a week for a startup slash scale up that can't afford maybe to pay them fully, but in 3 days a week, they can do wonderful work. They get paid. The growing company gets exactly what they need. And this gives this person more flexibility to develop other parts of their portfolio. I see this as a great solution. And as I said, I've helped a number of clients do this, particularly if they're in the, let's say, last quarter or last fifth of their career, of their work life, because they have the wisdom, the skills, the experience, the network, and it makes it so much easier. And possibly not as much financial pressure, meaning they can afford not to earn as much as they used to, or not for a while. So
And
that's a pattern that I've been seeing. But also I've helped some clients transition into solopreneurship and entrepreneurship, and actually launch their own companies, mostly through contracting and consulting in their area of expertise. And some have grown and have actually started to employ people and build teams. So these are some of the alternatives that we have now to let's say full-time corporate employment, which of course still exists. And I'm not saying don't go for that if that's what you want, but the market is really super crowded, and the supply of talent seems to be much bigger than the current demand in terms of what is out there in the market.
I want to commend you, what you said about that you actually quit.
Yes, I did. I
Because
did.
so you had the knowing, so you had the courage to not wait till you're fired or laid off or
Yeah.
freed by some other circumstance. So what was going on in your mind? Like what was not working? How did you
Mm.
know and have the courage to do that?
Okay. So at the time, the situation wasn't ideal in the sense that there was, and I'm
It never
being very
is, right?
honest. Yeah. In the workplace where I was, there was quite a lot of politics going on. So I had been offered a higher level role, which I was very pleased about. But then came a backlash because certain people were not happy with that. So eventually that didn't happen, but really demotivated me. And I already started to think about leaving because I didn't feel I was really leveraging all my skills and experience. I was a senior person already, I mean, in terms of experience, and I was running a part of the business, small part, and I had a team. So that pushed me to start to think, okay, actually, what would I like to do by myself? In that transition period, I moved to working part time. I think I cut one day. So I was working 4 days a week, and I started to have more time to think, to ponder, to research. There were a few other things I was looking into, even opening a cafe with vegan and gluten-free stuff, and we're talking a long time ago. So that was, it was just starting to break into, at least in the market in London. But eventually I didn't opt for that because even though it was very exciting and I think I could have done well in terms of managing people, but it's a very labor intensive business. It's one of those that I call, being on the ground 24/7. Whereas what I chose eventually, which is to work with people and offer career coaching and development for them, is it gives me a lot more freedom, which I'm actually using recently a lot because I can work from anywhere, and that's such a gift.
Mm. I love that. And what you're saying sounds so simple, but creating that time and space to start to reflect, to start to imagine these
Yes,
possibilities, right? And even playing around with them.
and try them. Yes, and talk to people. I think learning from people is one of my favorite methods if you want to, explore a new career or some sort of transition, or you're changing industries. Talk to as many people as you can. Of course, be observant because we are all subjective, and we will say what's on our minds, but take what's useful for you, discard the rest, and then start to equip yourself with the knowledge, and then see how you can move from there.
That's why I love having these conversations because people will do exactly that, what you're saying. They will resonate with some things, right, that you're sharing, and they can implement it, and then they can, yeah, like you said, take what they want, what works for them, and leave
Yeah.
the rest. And they will get exactly the answer that they need, or maybe uh, a possibility that they didn't imagine, that could be
Yes.
something that actually would be energizing for them.
Yes, absolutely. But you don't know until you try and figure out,
Yeah.
until you ask. I believe in that ask and you shall be given. And I primarily mean about information and answers. But
Mhm.
equally, remember to ask yourself and your gut and your heart and your intuition, because these are all very important, not just the logical mind. At least I like to get information from various sources available to us.
Ask and you will be given is profound.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not my saying. I don't know who said it, but it is quite wise.
It's the truth. And, I had a conversation recently. It's one of the interviews that I released with Mary Korn, and we talked about this longing, this sentiment, like, okay, you decided to quit and kind of chart and go your own way on your own terms. But many people who, let's say, even who have been laid off, or maybe who are listening who still are in roles that no longer spark the light in them, or secretly there's this wish, there's a part of that wish to be freed through firing, through layoff, because it's very hard to get the courage to actually
Yes,
quit,
to
even
do
though
it
you
yourself.
know that it's
Mm,
no longer working for you.
true. I think we all get entrapped in the trappings of especially nice, cushy corporate jobs. There's so many things that tie you, the handcuffs, the salary, the bonus, the benefits, the car, the stocks, it goes on and on. So the more you're tied in, the harder it is to break. However, that's why I always advise, wherever possible, to take a mindful, deliberate approach to your career so you can work on this transition ideally, or any transition, ideally when you're not in a tight spot. Meaning, don't wait until everything is terrible, because then it's a lot harder. But try and use the time and space that you have currently in your life and in your work, and start to put some time aside for other considerations, for this research, for conversations, for brainstorming, also for getting to know yourself better, whether you do that with a coach, by yourself, with a mentor, a friend. It is very important work.
Ideally.
Yes.
And then the
Yeah.
real life happens. I love it, and I so hear what you're saying. And let's say somebody has a resume, expertise, decade, 2 decades, whatever, filled
Mm-hmm.
with functions, work, responsibilities, expertise that they
Mm-hmm.
never care to do for another day in their life.
Mm. What then? Is that the question?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer that this sense of fulfillment and purpose is very, very important, because we're giving limited time in our lives. So I just don't feel it's fair to us or anyone to squander it by doing something that you don't care about, or just, being transactional in your work, or, just doing it for the paycheck. Um, there should be something more to it. That is my humble opinion, because that affects really your overall, your life, your being, everything. Now, I'm not saying that we all have to be absolutely in love every minute with what we do. That's may not be possible. But if there is a choice, if there is a possibility to even push through, to find something that resonates with you, that makes you happy and excited, then it really deserves your attention.
I love that. And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would want to share?
Okay, that's a great question. I think I could share just a few sentences about who I work with, in case people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, or read my newsletter there, or speak with me, because I do offer complimentary 40-minute calls on Zoom, where I help people explore some of the things that we touched upon today, which is, what are their aspirations, what are their goals, what's in the way, and I aim to give them insights and value during that conversation. And then, should there be interest on both sides, we can take it further and talk about my program, which I call the Ultimate Career Transformation. So it's an A to Z, I would say, of career transitions. It is quite deep, and it requires deep work, not only transactional work. So there's a lot of mindset work, but there's also very specific career guidance that would help those normally corporate individuals actually execute on the plan that we create. Majority of my clients are corporate executives, I would say senior to mid-senior, who are in any of these scenarios. whether they're disenchanted or they want a new challenge or maybe they're out of work, all kinds of things. I have to say, I've seen everything, people coming from toxic workplaces or a boss from hell or, burnout, even people in litigation with their former employer, all kinds of things happen. So, yeah, I assist people in all these scenarios to find a way out, but also to find a way into something that's going to be way better for them in terms of all aspects of everything that's important to them. And the clients come from, majoritively, I would say, financial services and tech, but also media, pharma, engineering. And they do come from around the world, which is very, very gratifying for me because I love working with a wide variety of people. So, literally from all continents.
I love that. And how can people find you and follow you?
Right. So on LinkedIn, I am there as Jelena Radonjic. My name will be visible on your podcast and the link. So I welcome everyone to connect. And then also on my website, which is whatwork.co.uk, they'll be able to find out more about me and also to book a call to read about my methodology, to also take a career fitness quiz, which is something I developed 5, 6 years ago, which is a very simple tool to check where you're at, how prepared you are for change, and also how fulfilled you are in your work. So there's quite a lot of materials that I put out there for people to use and benefit from.
Beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you for the work you're doing in this world. And what
Thank
is one final wish you would leave somebody who has it on their heart that they're lacking that fulfillment, lacking that sense, but don't know, kind of are heavy in that seeking mode and kind of sometimes feel that ache of desperation, even?
you. Wow, that really is a great question. I would say don't give up and keep searching. If need be, get help, expert help. I think it's very important that, at least that's my philosophy, that I don't know everything and I cannot know everything, and why not consult someone who can help me see things or explore things. And also, because you also work with people in similar scenarios, it's the power of having someone in your corner, someone to hold the mirror as well so you can see yourself better, someone who can support you and facilitate that journey. So that would be my sort of parting message: not to give up, and to find a way to find that spot of fulfillment.
I love that. There's a comfort in knowing that you don't have to walk this journey, this life alone.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Yelena. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.